The hidden value of simplicity. It was a cool autumn afternoon, and the old wooden clock in Clara's living room ticked away rhythmically, almost in sync with the light rustling of the wind outside. The grandchildren, Emily, the curious 12-year-old, and her younger brother, Sam, who was just 9, had come to spend their vacation with Grandma Clara in the countryside. The children loved the serenity of the place, with its sprawling meadows, the gentle whisper of the wind through the tall trees, and most importantly, the stories Grandma Clara would tell them. "Grandma, tell us a story," Emily pleaded as they settled onto the large, overstuffed couch. Sam, always more straightforward, chimed in, "Yeah, a long one, with a lesson at the end." Grandma Clara smiled at the request, her soft eyes twinkling beneath her silver-framed glasses. She knew that her grandchildren loved stories that made them think, and she always had one ready, each with a little nugget of wisdom for them to reflect on. Today, she thought, she would tell them one of her favorites. "All right," she said, settling into her favorite armchair, a hand-knit shawl draped over her shoulders. "I'll tell you the story of the wise tailor, a story that taught me many things when I was your age. It's not just about sewing clothes, but also about understanding life." Both children leaned in, eager to hear the tale unfold. Grandma Clara began. "Once upon a time, in a small village nestled between green hills and a winding river, there lived a tailor named Elias. Elias wasn't just any tailor. He was the best in the land. His stitches were finer than anyone's, his designs unmatched, and every piece of clothing he crafted seemed to carry with it a certain kind of magic. People came from far and wide just to have him make them a suit or dress. But despite his skills, Elias was humble and lived a simple life. He had a small shop with just enough space for his sewing machine, fabrics, and a cozy chair by the window where he sat and stitched all day. More importantly, Elias was known not only for his craft, but also for his wisdom. You see, every time someone came to him for a piece of clothing, he would also give them advice if they asked. And often, his words were worth far more than the clothes he made. One day, a young man named Jonah entered Elias's shop. Jonah was preparing for a special day, his wedding. He was a handsome young fellow, but a bit too concerned with appearances. He wanted everything about his wedding to be perfect, and that included the suit he would wear. "Elias," Jonah began, looking around the shop with a bit of hesitation, "I've heard you're the best tailor around, and I need a suit. No, I need the most perfect suit you've ever made. It has to fit me like it was woven by angels themselves, and it has to look better than anything anyone has ever worn." Elias chuckled softly, looking up from his work. "A tall order, indeed," he said, motioning for Jonah to take a seat. "But tell me, young man, why must it be so perfect?" Jonah looked at Elias as if the question were ridiculous. "Because it's my wedding. I want people to remember how good I looked that day. The suit has to be perfect because I want to be perfect." Elias raised an eyebrow but said nothing. Instead, he got up and began measuring Jonah, silently taking note of his every dimension. He worked swiftly but with great care, and after a while, he nodded. "Come back in 3 days, and your suit will be ready," Elias said, his voice calm. Jonah left, feeling confident that Elias would deliver exactly what he wanted. Now, as the tailor began working on the suit, he thought about the young man's words. A suit, no matter how finely made, could not make someone perfect, he mused. But he knew that Jonah would not realize this on his own. So, Elias decided that the suit would be more than just a piece of clothing, it would carry a lesson. 3 days later, Jonah returned, full of excitement and anticipation. Elias greeted him with the suit wrapped in fine paper, tied with a simple ribbon. Jonah quickly unwrapped it and held it up. His face fell. "What is this?" he exclaimed. It's so plain. There's nothing special about it at all." Elias smiled gently. "Try it on, young man." Reluctantly, Jonah slipped into the suit. As soon as he did, his expression changed. The fit was absolutely flawless. Every seam, every stitch was perfectly aligned. The fabric felt like it was part of him, as if it had been made from his very skin. It fits perfectly, Jonah said, surprised. But still, it's so simple. Elias nodded. It is simple. But let me tell you something, Jonah. A suit, no matter how grand or elaborate, cannot make a man perfect. It's not the clothes that make the person, it's the person who gives the clothes meaning. You see, I could have made you a suit covered in embellishments and embroidery, but would that have made you a better husband? Would it have made your love stronger or your marriage more meaningful? Jonah was silent, thinking over Elias's words. This suit, Elias continued, is made to fit you perfectly, yes. But the simplicity of it is a reminder that you are the one who will give it value. When you stand at the altar, it won't be the suit people remember. It will be the love in your heart, the way you treat your bride, and the kind of man you are. Jonah was taken aback. He had never thought of it that way. He had been so focused on looking perfect that he had forgotten what was truly important. He realized that Elias's words carried more weight than any fabric ever could. Thanking the tailor, Jonah left the shop, his mind swirling with thoughts about what truly mattered. He wore the suit on his wedding day, and indeed, no one commented on how simple it was. Instead, everyone marveled at how happy and content the couple looked, and how Jonah had carried himself with grace and humility. As time passed, Jonah often thought about Elias's wisdom, and whenever he faced a challenge in his marriage or life, he would remind himself that it wasn't the outward appearance that mattered, it was who he was inside. So, children, Grandma Clara said, her voice soft and steady, what do you think the lesson in that story was? Sam, ever the first to speak, said, it's not about what you wear, but about who you are inside. Right? Grandma Clara smiled warmly. Exactly, Sam. Elias was teaching Jonah that no matter how perfect something seems on the outside, it's what's inside that truly counts. People often get caught up in appearances, thinking that if they look perfect, their lives will be perfect. But that's not how it works. The heart, the character, and the kindness we show, those are the things that make us truly beautiful. Emily, who had been quiet throughout, now spoke. But Grandma, how did Elias become so wise? Was he always like that? Grandma Clara chuckled softly. That, my dear Emily, is another story for another time. But I will say this, Elias, like all of us, learned from life. He made his mistakes, but he paid attention to them, and he grew wiser with each one. So he wasn't born wise? Emily asked. No one is born wise, Grandma Clara said with a gentle laugh. Wisdom comes from experience, from living and learning, and from paying attention to the world around you. Sam yawned, leaning back into the couch, clearly thinking about the story. I wish I could meet Elias, he said sleepily. In a way, Clara said, her eyes twinkling, you've already met him. Because every time you remember his story, every time you choose to be kind or to think beyond appearances, you're carrying a little piece of his wisdom with you. The children, satisfied and thoughtful, leaned back into the warmth of their grandmother's home, the story weaving its way into their minds and hearts. The wind outside whispered through the trees, as if carrying the tailor's quiet wisdom into the world beyond. And as the fire crackled softly in the hearth, Grandma Clara smiled, knowing that the tale of the wise tailor would stay with her grandchildren for a long, long time. Clara finished her story, looking at her grandchildren. Remember, she said softly, life is about how you carry yourself and treat others, not what you wear or how you appear.